It's kind of like you're surfing, but you can't see the waves.
Today on This American Land, talk about a rush. These thrill seekers jump off a mountain and catch a ride on energy from the sun.
You just sound like you're singing the language.
Home movies and digital tools are helping to revitalize the Ojibwe language.
It's a good day. It's young. Things are being set right.
And these bison are bringing new life to the lands where their ancestors roamed. All this and more now on This American Land. Funding for This American Land provided by the Weiss Foundation and the Turner Foundation.
Hello, and welcome to This American Land. I'm Bruce Burkhardt.
And I'm Caroline Ravel. Every week, we'll introduce you to some of the foot soldiers of conservation, working to protect our natural resources.
In our first story, a homecoming for a bison herd. It was made possible by some people decades ahead of their time in protecting these iconic animals. Gary Stryker has our story.
It's a good day. It's young. Things are being set right. I would have never thought to see buffalo in this part of Montana, where they once were. Them coming back, coming home.
Home to these buffalo is the big sky and rolling grasslands of the American Prairie Reserve. 122,000 acres of private and public land in northern Montana, where buffalo are free to roam.
The American Prairie Reserve grew out of an idea that's been around for at least 40 or 50 years. And that idea is that in North America, we should put together one wildlife complex that's based on a grassland environment as opposed to forested or rock and ice.
The reserve made its first purchase of 21,000 acres in 2004, and there are plans to expand it to 500,000 acres. That's a lot of land for the small resident herd of buffalo now grazing the reserve. On a sunny day in March, the herd is about to get a boost with the release of 71 pure bison calves from Canada. These are very special animals, the direct descendants of the plains bison that once roamed Montana when explorers Lewis and Clark passed through here in 1805. To celebrate their return, wildlife advocates from around the state and local Indian reservations have come together to honor Michelle Pablo, who gathered a rescue herd in 1883 and sold them to the Canadian government, which had offered to conserve them for future generations.
A trap bull was literally...
Pablo's great-great-granddaughter, Marcia Pablo.
We are honored to be a part of this celebration and see the descendants from the Pablo herd coming back to Montana. They're coming home. It has been 100 years since the last shipment of buffalo left Montana. In Native American beliefs, the circle is a sacred symbol. Today we see the circle being completed as the descendants from the Pablo herd are back in the United States, thanks to the American Prairie Reserve.
With the resident buffalo nearby, the Pablo family opens the gate so the new arrivals can join the herd.
So this herd that we see here, the herd was started back in 2005 with just 16 animals that World Wildlife Fund helped bring back here. We started with 16 from South Dakota. Just today was a really special day where we brought in the 71 animals from Canada. The project's very much a collaboration with American Prairie Reserve and the World Wildlife Fund. American Prairie Reserve owns the land and they manage the bison. World Wildlife Fund has been a part of restoring bison here since the beginning, and it's the first new conservation herd in Montana in 70 years.
The World Wildlife Fund surveyed areas in the United States that would be suitable to rehabilitate a full prairie grasslands ecosystem.
In North America, there's relatively few intact grasslands, and this is one of those that is intact and is extremely valuable in terms of conservation. The majority of the prairies have been plowed, and this is one of those places where relatively little of the land has been cultivated, and we can support a lot of the species that are native to this landscape. The bison herd consists of about 215 animals now, and they range over about 15,000 acres. Ultimately, our hope is that we will have an ecologically functional herd in the sense that there's very few herds that range on sufficient scale with sufficient number of animals to have a meaningful impact on the land as they would have historically.
The buffalo will help shape the landscape with their mosaic grazing patterns, moving across the grassland and creating new habitat for prairie dogs and other native species.
A number of organizations, including Wildlife Conservation Society, Nature Conservancy, World Wildlife Fund, and others, corroborated each other's work, saying that this would be one of the best places to create a complex like this. The reason is available size. It can be big enough for a fully functioning ecosystem. Another 50 years from now, what I truly believe will be here is one of the most spectacular reserves anywhere on Earth.
This priceless photo from the Rocky Mountain Arsenal National Wildlife Refuge. It's tough to get a good hairdresser when you're out on the trail all day. So a few years ago, Boy Scout Troop 888 from Evergreen, Colorado installed these bison-sized hairbrushes, actually recycled street sweeping brushes, as scratching posts. A beastly-sized salon that rangers tell us gets a workout every day.
Usually we think of plants and animals when we talk about endangered species, but there's another treasured resource in need of our protection: language. In our Science Nation report, Miles O'Brien explains how some modern tools are being used to preserve the spoken word of the Ojibwe.
The Ojibwe language was once spoken all around the Great Lakes, but now, like many indigenous tongues, it is endangered. These days, it's most often heard at ceremonies. University of Minnesota Duluth education professor Mary Hermes is working hard to keep the language alive by bringing together tribal elders and video technology. With support from the National Science Foundation, she videotapes fluent speakers in everyday situations. Elders then help transcribe those short movies. The result? Realistic language lessons from master speakers, archived for the future, available to students and linguists everywhere.
So as a group, we'd sit around and think of sort of a theme or a story. And within that, the elders improvise the language. What we're hoping is that you hear it in an everyday way. Tie your shoes, get up, hey mom, what's for breakfast? That kind of informal speaking that's not correct necessarily formal grammar, but the way you would speak it. And we set up different scenarios. Because Ojibwe isn't spoken on a regular basis, there's not a store or a rummage sale or a resort. But part of what we're doing is trying to re-envision what that would be like. Everywhere you went, everything you did was in Ojibwe.
Oh,
One of her movie stars is excited about this new focus on preserving Ojibwe.
We had fun, and I think that any way that you can help people learn the language, because I'm just afraid that if we lose it, all the elders are dying off.
Hermes has built trust with the Ojibwe community. She has also organized workshops and immersion classes and developed a series of interactive educational games. And she stresses the benefits of saving the language will pay off beyond just this tribe.
And I think people have got to get beyond thinking it's just for the Ojibwe people, that we want to save the Ojibwe language. There's 10,000 years of human evolution and knowledge in that language.
Hermes says new words are being added to the Ojibwe vocabulary all the time, as happens with all living languages. She's doing her part to keep it that way. For Science Nation, I'm Miles O'Brien.
The Ojibwe language is 2/3 verbs, and it's considered one of the most difficult of spoken languages.
A skyscraper in Davenport, Iowa may not be the first place you think of when it comes to saving a threatened bird species. But some biologists and bird lovers came up with a creative way to save a species nearly wiped out by pesticides. Spring floods. And while the Mississippi River plays out its drama on the ground, a drama once almost vanished forever plays out high in the air. On the 18th floor of the downtown Davenport, Iowa Mid-American Energy Building, a pair of peregrine falcons are nesting, once near extinct raptors.
My office was up here and just happened to look out the window and saw this extremely large, colorful bird sitting on the ledge, not knowing exactly what it was.
The really large bird turned out to be a peregrine, the female, which in falcons is a full 1/3 larger than the male. The favored and traditional habitat of the peregrine falcon here in the American Midwest is high on the cliffs of a river. But by the 1960s, falcon nests were empty. DDT, which almost wiped out the American bald eagle, was doing the same to the peregrines, causing eggshells so thin that hatching was impossible. Up, up. Up, up. And who was looking in on those nests to notice and sound the alarm? Those who practice the age-old skill of hunting with these birds, falconers.
Pretty much from the Rocky Mountains all the way to the East Coast. That had been thousands of pairs up till the 1940s and 50s.
Falconers across the nation had an idea. Use captive bred stock to try to repopulate our wild peregrine population here.
There are a species that are worldwide, but just like a lot of things, there's a little bit different subspecies. There's of a little different size, maybe a little bit different makeup. This particular one came out of the Aleutian Island chains probably back in the 50s. And
with donated dollars and help from state departments of natural resources, they bought birds from all corners of the world. Here in Iowa, falconers and the DNR released 38 birds in 1999 and 2000. Peregrines take naturally to tall buildings, so the falconers and the DNR approached Mid-American Energy Company about a nesting box on this ledge, lined, as peregrines do it in their native cliffs, with gravel.
But they like these tall structures, they like the updrafts, they like the prey base, they like to hunt over the river. And by hunting, I mean they go after other songbirds, birds as large as a duck.
This female is from a release in Indiana. The male, part of that Iowa release, rejoining his mate 10 years in a row now, each coming back from roaming the world to partner a few months on this little piece of rooftop. Early May, and one chick is hatched here. This ball of fluff will, within the summer, learn to stun and knock prey from the sky at the fastest speed known to any living creature, up to 260 miles an hour. The falcon's watch over their chick is intense, and neither parent brooks the danger posed even by humans watching on the other side of a thick window.
You guys ready? Okay.
Once a year, though, this window is removed, and though it's anything but easy, the chick is separated from its parents. In return for saving the peregrine, it's important to track them, to know where they go, how long they survive.
So by weighing it, we can determine its sex.
First, weighing. By its size, this chick is determined to be a female. She will be named Joplin, as a nod to the Missouri town just ravaged by a tornado. Blood samples can signal anything wrong. with the individual bird or with the species.
They're a biological indicator species of the highest regard. And hopefully, we'll never have to release them ever again. We won't lose them.
And finally, the delicate business of banding. This is what allows humans to keep track of the peregrine's wanderings, their activities, and their longevity. Joplin is learning to eat on her own, and Dave Sebin is there when she first takes to the air from 18 stories up.
The chick was a little surprised. Her eyes got big as saucers and took that first step off the nesting box and glided about 200 feet down here to the first floor patio.
Sky hunting birds and skyscrapers with traffic below are not necessarily the best of mixes, but the relative safety, with Dave to retrieve her as often as necessary, braving a dive-bombing mother, is a trade-off. And this is where we leave Joplin, to parents who will watch over and teach her till she's flying and hunting on her own, to the humans who have painstakingly brought the peregrine back from the cliff's edge of extinction, and to nature, to the cliffs and rivers where Joplin and all like her belong.
Peregrine falcons hunt most vigorously at dawn and dusk in open areas like shores, marshes, and valleys. While hunting, they make a series of sharp, aggressive territorial calls.
Our next story is also about taking flight, but this time the sun provides the power. Paragliding is a spectacle some call a yacht race in the sky. The vivid details now in a story produced by Ed Yon for Oregon Field Guide.
From a distance, they look like circling vultures. Look closer, though, and a swarm of colored wings comes into view. They're paragliders, flying so closely that they sometimes touch.
It feels like you're up there doing the most amazing thing that you could possibly do with a bunch of friends, legally. And it's fucking, we're in a big mobile together. We're all going up together.
These paragliders, 160 of them from all over the world, are flying high above the hills west of Medford in a competition known as the Rat Race. Organizer Mike Haley says it's like a yacht race in the sky.
We're really using thermal lift, which is generated from the sun heating the earth and pockets of hot air rising up. And we'll ride those currents and get high above this mountaintop. We'll connect those dots over a course just like a yacht race. And we'll have these guys flying courses that have turn points all around these mountains that they have to go tag, and the first person to go wins the course that day.
Yeah, Jamie.
If you want priority launching, come see me and I'll fit you in right now.
Hands right, launch it right.
It's called the Rat Race because competitors launch from Wood Rat Mountain, perched 3,700 feet above the Applegate Valley. It's here where each day of the 7-day event begins with tense anticipation.
Wow, looks like a jigsaw puzzle, doesn't it?
Mike and his team have to design a challenging but safe course for pilots who will have nothing but the wind and air currents to power them.
And what's your opinion on this turning Rabies Peak into a 400 meter for the sprint group?
If it's 8,500 feet, it's fine.
Yeah, but if
it's not, then it's a tough sending them in there low.
So we're trying to pick paths that seem to have appropriate points where we know they can fly and they're going to continue their course with lift. Our goal is to get 30, maybe 40% of the people that can complete the course.
That means that 60% won't make it. They'll struggle and bail out, hopefully somewhere safe in the valley below. So when the day's challenge is presented to the pilots, their attention is unwavering.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's going to be a lovely day. This course line's not so much longer than yesterday, but it's certainly going to be more difficult, I think, than yesterday's course
Pilots
line.
get busy programming GPS units that will help guide them between the otherwise invisible waypoints that Mike has laid out across the sky.
After 2 o'clock, you've got to have one recorded point outside 2K.
Then they wait for warm air to rise from the valley, air that pilots will ride like escalators in the sky.
Right now, everybody's got this sense of intention and tenseness because we all think it's going to be good, and it's not good yet. So we're all watching. Sooner or later, one of those guys is going to catch a screaming thermal and go, up to those clouds, and hopefully they'll be at 8,000 feet. And then there's going to be a mad scramble here, and you'll feel the energy. It'll just be like electricity. I don't know if it's going to, it might affect your recording gear. There's going to be so much energy on launch.
Okay, launch is open! Okay, I feel a cycle here.
And then it happens. Pilots start launching one nearly every 30 seconds.
Left turning! Left turn! Left!
You get a feeling of euphoria. Like you take off and you're running and you're charging and you're nervous and you're excited and you get out there and you get in your harness and you get all set up. And you go, whew, flying, you know? It's such an amazing thing.
Martina Lang is one young pilot from Canada who has yet to complete this race after years of trying.
Today's a lot harder course, but I'm going to remember my mantra from yesterday: never leave the lift, stay high, and try and fly with other people.
With this many pilots, there is one absolutely critical rule. Everyone has to turn in the same direction. And the result is a mesmerizing gaggle of color.
It can be a little bit scary at times, but once you get in it, it's like being a part of a huge mobile, and it feels like nobody's moving because everybody's moving at the same rate. It's just, it's a miracle.
It looked dangerous, but we couldn't help but want to know what it was like to be in that gaggle. So the field guide crew took a few pilots up on their offer to get in the mix.
How you doing up there?
I'm doing good.
Photographer Todd Sonfleet jumped into a tandem with local pilot Greg Babish.
Okay, let's lean right. Got a much stronger thermal. And if you can hear the Vario chirping a lot faster, that signifies that we're climbing significantly faster than we have yet so far today. My head's on a swivel because there's pilots all around here. From the ground, looking up, a person might think it's really kind of crazy up here because they see pilots going everywhere, but it's kind of organized. I always think of the Tour de France. We've got hundreds of bicyclists riding really fast and close together, but they're all going a similar speed, and that's the same with us here.
And as long as everybody does what they're supposed to be doing, it's not nearly as chaotic as it looks from the ground. On the other hand, sometimes it's more chaotic than it looks from the ground. So.
All right, launch it left.
In a race where pilots fly with no motors, finding the thermals that serve as fuel is a big challenge.
There's going to be large columns of rising air, and there'll be 100 people in that one column going up at the same time.
Without other pilots, we're kind of flying blind unless there happens to be some smoke or a bird thermaling up. If you look in front of us, that orange glider's climbing really quick. We're going to go try and get in that thermal with them.
It's kind of like you're surfing, but you can't see the waves. You have to figure out what the wind's doing, where the sun's heating, where it's warmer. And again, when you're flying with this many people, if you see someone sinking to your left and going up to your right, you're going to go right and follow them there.
And all the while, these paragliders are racing from point to point and trying to beat each other to the finish.
This is a lot going on. Not only are we asking you to launch safe, be safe, fly safe, now we're asking you to fly specific courses where it's not just necessarily where the easiest course is. We're saying, no, you have to go here today, and we know it's into a headwind, which is really slow, and they have to fly the course that we want, but it's not easy.
After hours in the sky and after 4 years of trying, Martina finally makes it to the finish.
Welcome! Good for you! That's fantastic. Good flight?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Must have been a good flight. Oh, wonderful.
I've been to these competitions a few times and I've always landed short, so it's a big goal I just met.
Eventually, all the other pilots start dropping out of the sky too, into local farm fields and wineries. Some come in smoothly, and some don't. Nearly all of them, though, land with a smile on their face.
I did well. I had a good start and a lot of good climbs, and looks like I came in first, so.
It must feel good.
That feels great.
Who had their best time yesterday? Distance, duration.
First time in goal, and was my longest flight.
Yes, there is competition at Rat Race. It is a race after all. But there's also a strong bond that comes from spending 7 days sharing in the passion that comes from getting airborne.
And some people tell us this is like, summer camp for adults. Well, maybe that's true. And we like to come out and have a good time.
Beautiful job. Awesome. Dude, you helped me climb out.
And the flying, it's just amazing. I mean, you're up there 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 feet. It is at times a Zen-like spiritual experience.
Here's a story we're working on for a future show.
Another one down here?
Sounds like it.
What's ailing the alligators at Lake Apopka? We'll show you how pollution is interfering with their reproduction.
Thanks for watching, and for all of us at This American Land, we'll see you next time.
For more information about this program, visit thisamericanland.org. Funding for This American Land provided by the Weiss Foundation and the Turner Foundation.